Hello everyone, I am finally sitting down to make this video. I am going to talk about the Big Five, Le Grand Cinq, as they say, the Big Five countries that are participating in Eurovision 2023. As I am filming this, rehearsals have already begun in Liverpool, and we are now exactly 1 week away from semifinal one. So I'm a bit late with getting this video out. Please forgive me, but it's coming out. It's coming out this week beforehand. I've already made a video talking about the contestants for semifinal one and semifinal two, respectively, and my predictions and who will qualify and all of that. So I will link those videos in the description if you are interested. And so, of course, keeping with tradition, I need to give my thoughts on 5 songs that are from the Big Five countries, along with the winner from last year, Ukraine, who would be the host country this year, but they are sort of co-hosting with the UK due to the fact that there is unfortunately an ongoing war in Ukraine. So, kind of a rare situation where the winner from the previous year is not able to host in their own country. Ukraine has won 2 times before and has hosted subsequently, but this time around it is just not feasible. The UK came in 2nd place last year, and so the UK and the Ukraine are working together to bring us a show in Liverpool. And a city that I have been to, actually, my family from the UK, because I have a British side, my dad is British, they live on the Wirral, which is, sort of close to Liverpool. It's the Merseyside, so it's just a bit south. So I've been to Liverpool quite a few times. So it's kind of, interesting to see how that city is getting all done up for this event. It seems they're putting a lot of effort into promoting it in Liverpool, which is really wonderful to see. It is going to be a big, spectacular show, I am confident. Even though, unfortunately, we have the fewest number of participants in this entire contest, 37, although only 26 countries will perform in the grand final, which is always standard. That number is always the same, 25 or 26, depending on if the host country is from one of the Big Five or not, which this year it is not from the Big Five. So there are 6 automatic qualifiers instead of 5. When Italy won, Italy was also a Big Five host country. And if you want the whole spiel as to why the Big Five automatic spots in the final, that's a whole other video. I've gone over how I, again, do not necessarily agree with this. I think that the Big Five, those countries, which are, by the way, England, the UK, Italy, Spain, Germany, and France, these 5 countries really should have to compete in the semis. I just don't really think it is that fair. I know they do put up the most amount of money for the contest to be held, but they should get their ego aside and be like, even if we're not participating in the final, we should support this contest. That's a little bit like, I only want to support it if I'm there kind of mentality. I don't know. It's just rubs me the wrong way. And then, of course, obviously, the winner from the year before, that country gets a special, privilege of automatically qualifying, which I do actually agree with that. I think that that's a nice sort of olive branch to the host country, because it changes every year. It's not like every year we get the same 5 countries automatically skipping and getting a fast pass. So I wouldn't change that. I would change the Big Five would have them compete in the semis. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. So what I'm going to do is I am going to rank the Big Five countries, and I'm going to talk about them, and then I'm going to talk about Ukraine at the very end. And then I'll tell you where I would put Ukraine if I were ranking all of these as well. So I believe we do see these performed during the semis, although I read somewhere that that might not be the case this year. Correct me if I'm wrong there on what that deal is. There's some unique things going on this year, like, for example, there will not be any juries during the semifinals, and other things that are going to be a little different this year. So I might have been incorrect in what I read or misinterpreted it, but it sounds like we might not be seeing. I actually kind of like saving them for the big show, because I feel like, when you watch the finals after having watched the semis, you're seeing a lot of acts perform a second time. It can get a little bit like, okay, well, I don't need to see this perform twice. Like, I don't love the song that much. So I like saving, performances that we haven't seen before for the big night. But anyway, I will say and preface this, that I think the Big Five have stepped it up. I think the Big Five have been stepping it up consistently over the last 5 years. Some countries ahead of others. There's one country in particular who still seems to needs to get their head out of the gutter. And we'll talk about that in one moment. Because if I had to rank the Big Five entries this year, my bottom place, my least favorite entry from the Big Five, is going to go to, surprise, surprise, Germany with Lord of the Lost and their song Blood and Glitter. So I think two things can be true. This can be definitely a song that I do not think would necessarily, in my opinion, deserve to qualify if it were in a semi. However, I also can admit that this is probably Germany's strongest entry since justice for the 2020 Song Contest, right? Because we all seem to, forget one of the biggest sad things about the 2020 Song Contest being canceled was that it was the one year that Germany decided to kind of send something with quality in Violent Thing. And then, of course, the contest got canceled, and the next year they decided to send I Don't Feel Hate, which was just like, this is unfortunate. This is unfortunate. That song should have been the one that COVID canceled, not Violent Thing. I'm not saying Violent Thing is the second coming or anything. It's not like a winning song by any means, not even top 5. But it would have definitely not given Germany 0 points. Germany has had a horrendous track record at Eurovision pretty much since 2018. They've come in almost last or dead last the last 3 times the contest has been held. So in 2019, 2021, and 2022, they have done abysmally. Pretty much getting, I think, 0 points in almost all of those, except I think in 2021, they got like 3 points. They came like second to last. The UK still was at the very bottom. So we'll talk about the UK. But last year, a lot of countries got 0 points. And yeah, it was just, it was very deserved. I mean, if we're looking at 2019 to now, I hated the 2019 entry. I thought it was very ill-prepared, very bad, performed badly, not an interesting song. Obviously, I've mentioned, I Don't Feel Hate was terrible. And I did not like Rock Stars. I'm on tape saying that that was my least favorite entry from the Big Five last year as well. And so I don't know what Germany's problem is. I don't know if this year they decided to do a kind of national selection, but it wasn't, as broad as some national selections could be. There was still a lot of influence, I think, in who was going to be sent by the broadcaster. And the problem is that Lord of the Lost won only over an act who, if Germany had sent, we would all be side-eyeing. There was going to be an act, and I don't even remember the guy's name, and I don't really care to look it up because he doesn't deserve that recognition. The guy who was front-running was sending a horrendous song. On top of that, he apparently had a lot of problematic viewpoints that, on his social media, it was just like, it would have been the end of Germany at Eurovision if this act had gotten sent. It really would have, especially considering this wouldn't have just been like one dud year. It would have been following up dud after dud after dud since Michael Schulte in 2018, who, I think did a little too well that contest, but he still definitely didn't deserve to be in the bottom. And he came in the top 4 or 5. I can't remember which placement, maybe even top 3. So Germany was good then, and Germany did win the contest in 2010 with Satellites, and I do enjoy that song. But Germany has been in a dark period. Germany has been in a dark period at Eurovision, and it is time for them to step their ass up. So a lot of people are embracing Lord of the Lost, not least because they are so grateful, and I myself included, that this entry won over He Who Must Not Be Named, the act that would have completely ruined any shred of credibility that Germany might have had at Eurovision. Especially since Germany is a Western kind of European country, not an Eastern European country. Like, the Eastern European countries are a little more conservative. They do their own thing. It's a little bit more to be expected. But from somewhere like Germany, which is very liberal, that entry would have just not been a good look. Especially being in a Big Five country as well, with an automatic qualifier spot. That would have looked really bad. So Lord of the Lost, is a breath of fresh air for Germany's standards. But by my standards, Lord of the Lost with Blood and Glitter, if you've seen my ranking, which I also link in the description, my initial ranking of all 37 songs, I placed it in the bottom 7, I believe. It is just not my genre of music. It is a heavy metal song. It's channeling Hard Rock Hallelujah 2006. And spoiler alert, Hard Rock Hallelujah is one of my least favorite Eurovision winners of the last 30 years. Yeah, I'm going to be making that video soon this summer. Stay tuned for that. Gave a little bit of a spoiler there. Look, I don't have anything personal against these people. I just don't like this genre of music. If you watch my channel, you know that I am just not a fan of heavy metal. Heavy metal can be done tastefully, but interestingly, and I talk about this in Semifinal 2's video, Australia is also sending a somewhat heavy metal song, but I think Australia has a slightly, maybe it's a little bit more of a palatable heavy metal sound, meaning it's only really heavy during one part in the chorus bridge, whereas the rest of the song is more just sort of, classic rock, like stadium rock. I call it stadium rock. And it's palatable, almost pop, Lord of the Lost is definitely grittier. It's a little bit grittier. Now, I will say, I do think they are going to look really cool styled on stage. I am all for the extravagant, the makeup and the glitter and the sequins. I'm all for that. They're probably going to be shirtless on stage. There's going to be some sexual undertones. It's going to be provocative, but in a tasteful way. I know the conversation around Croatia right now is, are they bridging on beyond tasteful with how provocative they are being, which I don't want to get into that right now. But anyway, I think that Lord of the Lost is definitely going to give Germany its best result since 2018, but it is definitely not going to be that high. But I don't know, it could get on the left-hand side of the scoreboard, and I wouldn't put it there. I would put it on the right hand. I would put it, maybe within the bottom 10, maybe spot number 15, 16, 17. I give it some points, okay? I give it some points. There are worse songs, especially if certain songs qualify from the semis. Jesus Christ. If Ireland is in there, Ireland definitely needs to be below whatever Germany is sending. Because when you compare something like Ireland to Germany, you see Germany is bringing somewhat quality. Ireland is bringing, garbage. I'm sorry. I'm going to be honest. I'm keeping it real here. But anyway, Lord of the Lost, Blood and Glitter. Yeah, it's a no from me, dog, to quote Randy Jackson. But at the same time, it is the strongest German entry we have seen from a contest that was not canceled. So if we exclude 2020, the strongest entry they have sent since 2018. And so we have to give them props for improvement and for not sending the other guys. But that's all I really have to say on that. So let's talk about my next least favorite Big Five. And I want to make one thing very clear. There is a big jump in quality here. I think that the rest of the Big Five are definitely deserving of being left-hand of the scoreboard. The next least favorite, though, is going to go to Italy. Due Vite, sung by Marco Mengoni. Due Vite translates to Two Lives. Marco actually performed at Eurovision in 2013 with his song L'essenziale. And he came in 7th, so he did pretty well. And I gotta be honest with you, I listened to L'Essenziale, and I actually prefer Due Vite. I think Due Vite has a stronger melody. But at the end of the day, and he did shorten the song for Eurovision, the version performed at San Remo had at least an extra 30 seconds or so. So it tightens up the song a bit, but I don't really think it's quite reaching the heights that it could. I think that Italy, is dating itself a little bit with a lot of these kinds of entries. Bringing up 2020 again, Fai Rumore, another country that could have had a really strong result had the contest gone through, although it ended up working in their favor in 2021 because they followed it up by sending Måneskin, who of course won the contest. Fai Rumore might have not been a winning song in 2020, but it would have done pretty well. Similarly to Marco in 2013, I think I could have seen it getting in the top 10 easily. But I think Fai Rumore is just a more stirring ballad. I think that Due Vite is just a little safe, a little passé. It's not a song I have any interest in listening to after I've heard it once. And I know I don't understand the lyrics, but I'm not really compelled to want to understand the lyrics. Judging on the stale kind of melody. The song is about lives of two lovers drifting apart after a breakup. Okay. All right. So he's heart-stricken. I hope he sells that emotion on stage. I really do, because he can make this work for him. He's a good-looking guy. Is a well-written song, but there's just stronger in this contest. And so for me, Due Vite is not something I would pick up the phone and vote for. Okay, next up, we have the UK. Mae Muller, I Wrote a Song. First of all, can we talk about the insane amount of discourse that was going on Twitter particularly? at the beginning of March, when we still didn't know who the representative for the UK was going to be, and that there were a lot of names being thrown around. Freya Riding, Rina Sawayama, that was a big one. A lot of people were predicting. And even my girl, Birdie, I was shook. I was like, Birdie could be participating at Eurovision. And honestly, it looked possible. It looked feasible. She had just released her song Raincatchers. And apparently, when Sam Ryder was announced last year, Spaceman had actually already been released a week earlier, and no one knew when Spaceman was released. That they had confirmation that that was going to be the song and the entry for the UK. Because I was thinking, it can't be Birdie. She's already released her song, and there was no announcement about that. It was just announced as a lead single for her upcoming album. So I was like, there's no way. But they were like, no, if we follow last year's pattern with the BBC, that's how they did it. And so I was like, gosh, maybe it is. But, I was like, I was looking at the discourse, and I was looking at it, and especially with Rina and Birdie, I was kind of thinking, I don't know. It seems like in the UK, the attitude around established or even semi-established big names in, not just the UK, but in the global music scene that's come from the UK, they don't want anything to do with the contest. And even Sam Ryder last year sort of revamping the image of the UK after a Germany-esque slew of bottom place finishes, which also, if you know my channel, you know that I have a bone to pick with how Michael Rice in 2019 and Sue Rhee in 2018 were done very dirty. They did not deserve no point. They certainly maybe didn't deserve to, you could argue, even be on the left-hand side, but I would argue Bigger Than Us did deserve it. Anyway, but Sue Rhee and Michael Rice were treated really dirtily, and it did make me sort of believe for a while that there was more of a political reason for that. This was post-Brexit, and countries were just not wanting to give the UK any points because they were pissed off about that. But I've since then cooled on that viewpoint. But then, James Newman came, and everyone thought he was going to be the second coming. But, Embers was terrible and understandably deserved 0 points. I was actually so happy. I was going to be so pissed off if Michael Rice would get 0 and James Newman with Embers would have gotten a higher score. It just would not have sat right with me. But then last year, Sam Ryder came, and he tried to turn it all around. And he came in second place, which was remarkable, considering the UK had not scored nearly that high in God knows how long. I'm not a historian in the contest. The UK obviously has not won since 1997. And so the last time that the UK hosted, which was in Birmingham in 1998, that was 25 years ago. So the UK is definitely, people are treating it as a win because they're hosting it. It's technically a Ukraine win. The UK still hasn't technically won since 1997. But this is definitely a pat yourself on the back. Like, the BBC's feeling pretty good about this, right? Let's keep up the momentum. So anyway, with all that being said, I was hopeful about Birdie, but I was skeptical. Same with Rina, but even more so for Birdie, just because I feel like I know Birdie. And to be honest with you, I think that Birdie and Rina might have been asked, but I think they declined. I think both of them did. I think that they both probably felt that for different reasons, but especially for Birdie, it's not really something she wants to subject herself to. You do open yourself up to a lot of criticism, a lot of unwarranted, sort of discourse that, Birdie's doing okay. Does she really need to represent the UK at Eurovision? Is that even really what her music is about? I don't know. Her music is so artistic that I just don't really want to see it scrutinized like that. And ultimately, what we get with Mae Muller, I will be honest with you. When I first heard the song, I was kind of like, yeah, this is like, I don't know. This is Spotify, almost like sounding AI generated, like Iggy Azalea-esque pop. It's not really doing anything for me. It's sort of reminding me of Blanca's song representing Poland, even though I do believe that Blanca's song solo is far worse than I Wrote a Song. I Wrote a Song has grown on me. It has grown on me. I think Mae Muller has a charisma about her that, I don't know. I think on stage, she's going to be really engaging with the audience. She obviously is gaining a lot of positive support. I think also partly due to the fact that she is unapologetic in her like political beliefs, which has riled up a lot of the Tories in the UK. You know, she said some things that I was like, yes, girl, be shady, say those things. I mean, this was long before she was announced as a candidate, as you know, as the representative. But still, you know, conservatives are all digging these things up, and you know, May Muller is a queen for saying a lot of these things. So I think that, yeah, I like her for all of that. I just don't know if I actually really like her that much for the song itself. But I will say, compared to Embers or even My Last Breath or anything the UK has sent, barring Bigger Than Us and Storm, which again, I feel like we're unfairly maligned, this is a strong song and deserves, you know, like I said, to be predictably probably on the left-hand side of the scoreboard. I think if it weren't to do that well, and that would have to go with, you know, terrible staging or flop vocals or performance, there would be a lot more reason to believe there might be some political reasoning for that. But I don't think that that's going to happen. You know, the UK it's in their home territory too, so May Muller has a bit of that advantage. But she's not going to get top 5. I don't think anyone's predicting that. But yeah, I put it comfortably in the middle of my ranking of the 37 songs. I'm ambivalent towards it. I really am. I'm ambivalent towards it. It's a fun song, but it's not memorable to me. It's not a song I'm going to be thinking about or wanting to listen to after this contest is over. I feel that way about all 3 of the songs I just mentioned. But the 2 countries that I have yet to talk about, they are delivering. So let's talk about my second favorite Big 5 entry, France. Lazara with Évidemment. Now, we are getting a serve here. Lazara is giving us a really classic disco pop melody. It definitely is giving Dua Lipa future nostalgia vibes, but also it can harken back to classic Eurodisco 90s kind of stuff. Like, this is what we want to see, right? And especially from France. I mean, I really loved Foulaine. Justice for Foulaine. It did not deserve to get 0 points last year. That was harsh. I knew that song was going to have an uphill battle translating on stage. There was a lot that worked against it, but that song, at least the audio version, like the MP3, was playing in my household, okay? That song stayed in my phone after the contest was over. But Évidemment will as well. Évidemment is a strong song. And more importantly, it lends itself to really great straight stage performance. She can stay in one spot and not really have to dance, but it's a dance song and command the camera angles, command the dancers around her if there will be any. I don't think I've seen any rehearsal footage as of yet for this song. I've seen some rehearsal footages for other songs, but not for actually any of the Big 5 as of yet. As of filming this video. But the song obviously translates to Evidently, and it's actually really lyrically a lot more poetic than I expected. My heart, my hands, my eyes, my kidneys don't belong to me anymore. I hurt myself to do some good. I forget like it's nothing. In my infernal garden, flowers grow. Now, wouldn't it be more internal? But Wee Wee Blogs is saying infernal. Okay. That doesn't... Lost in translation? Dans mon jardin d'enfer? Yeah. That I water with my dreams, with my cries. Even if we were on top of the world, we couldn't touch the sky with a finger. Evidently, all of these beautiful promises that I hear, they're nothing but wind. Evidently, that before the sun comes the rain. That's what we forget. It is always too good to be true, but it is never too ugly to be false. Interesting. Now, again, lost in translation a little bit here, judging by this Wee Wee Blogs translation, but very interesting lyrically. And really, I mean, a brilliant way of selling kind of an emotional ballad-esque sentiment with an up-tempo disco orchestral motif. I think that this has a real package to it. It's just classy. It's just classy. It's just elegant. I am excited to see her styling. I think she is going to look fabulous. I hope that it mimics some what we see in the music video. Yeah, I'm excited for this one. However, I'm seeing discourse that this song is probably going to do better than my favorite of the Big 5 this year. And that kind of saddens me because as much as I do think Évidemment is good, There is a song that I think is far even more superior in that it is daring, experimental, but also very classic, very elegant, very well performed, and that's going to Spain, of course. Ella Ella by Blanca Paloma. This was one of the earlier Big Five entries we had released, and back in the beginning of the national final selection season, and everyone was raving about it. You know, this was going to be the song that saved Eurovision 2023 because it was looking pretty bleak there. Remember, there was not that many entries that we were feeling strongly about. And ever since I saw that performance on the Spanish stage, I just was like, this is what I come to Eurovision for. Ella Ella is pushing the boundaries of music. And it is experimental, and it's not going to sit with everyone on a first listen the same way. And I appreciate that. But this is exactly, again, like what Fulen did last year, what I want to see from the Big Five. I want to see something that has a regional sort of, obviously in their native language. So why can't Germany send something in German? Why can't Germany send something in German? But all the other Big Five countries, obviously the UK would send in English, but you know, why can France, Italy, and Spain send things in their native languages, but Germany can't send something in German? I guess that speaks to the fact that Germany is a little different in that they don't have the same cultural, and that's partly historical, due to history in Germany as of late, that they don't feel like quite as protective about their language as the Italian or the Spanish do, or the French. You can go to Germany and almost everyone speaks English, whereas you go to France or Italy or Spain and it's really hard to find people that speak English, at least fluently. So that's a big part of it. Germany is trying to be UK adjacent, whereas the other countries are trying to keep their own cultural identity, their Latin identity very strong. So, but I would like to see Germany send something in Swabian, like something like a Black Forest dialect that is kind of Pali-Shi 2019 Poland energy. Come on, Germany, you can do it. You can send your own version of Fulen, something ethnic, medieval, earthy, folky. And that's what we get with this sort of Iberian, enchanting lullaby. It's dark, it's mysterious, it's esoteric. Aya Aya is just a vocalization, and the song is built around the most sonically goosebump-inducing vocals that Blanca can deliver. Hey, come, my child, come sleep by my side. May my bosom provide you with refuge from all of your sorrows. Teardrops from the Nile, wakeful nights. My child, when I die, may they bury me in the moon, and I hope to watch over you every night, on every night except one. That's interesting, on every night except one. Hey, come, my child, my darling, the scion of all my love. May your sunny eyes illuminate me at night. Teardrops from the Nile, wakeful nights. Gosh, I mean, it's channeling from another time. I feel like they could have sung this in the ancient Greek period or the ancient Roman period, and even before that, the Egyptian era. I love when a song is also technically synthetically produced. There is some, electronic production around this song, but you don't even really notice that it's synthetic because the way that the production sort of supports Blanca's vocal rather than distort it, it feels, like I said, earthy and rooted and organic. And it's just so well produced. I don't know which I prefer more, the way she performs it on stage or the studio version. They offer something different. I think on stage, there's a little bit more room for sort of nuance in the performance, but the audio version, the studio version is so wonderful. This song deserves to win. Like, I would love to see this song win. And for a while there, I think we all thought it had a chance, but over time, with Sweden, especially when Tattoo was officially announced at the end of Melody Fest, that was competing, it sort of bumped Spain's chances, but I still see a top 5 for Spain. Look, Slow-Mo was a serve, but I prefer this over Slow-Mo. I'm definitely always going to root for the artsy girls over the, polished pop divas, even though I appreciate the Chanels, but I'm here for the Blanca Palomas. So, oh my gosh, I want to see this song do well. My biggest fear for Spain, it is the Big Five entry I'm the most worried about, is that it is going to get the Fulen treatment. I am worried that it is going to fall on deaf ears, that people aren't going to appreciate it, and no one's going to vote for it. And the juries are definitely going to help this one. I know that the jury struggled with Fulen and that didn't help, but the juries at least should help elevate this so that it does not get, because I could see with the televote, I don't know. I think it's got a lot of support. I think the Spanish Euro fans are going to try and get a lot of support from their neighbors. I think, for example, Italy and Portugal, I think they're going to send a lot of love to Spain for this one. And so I don't think it's going to struggle horrendously with the televote, but I do worry about it. I worry about it. I worry about my artsy girls. You know, we still Conan and Osiris in 2019, like with Telemoves, like didn't even qualify. You know, I worry that if this song were in the semis, would it meet a similar fate to Conan? Because they both are similarly kind of avant-garde and off-kilter. Although I would argue AI is a little more melodically pleasing. But anyway, I'm excited for this one. It's the one I'm the most excited to see performed on the stage, along with Évidemment. Spain has been probably the most impressive, along with Italy, of the big five as of like the last 5 years. The most consistently, you know, I mean, even at their worst when they're sending something like La Venda, or, you know, the 2018 ballad, can't remember the names of those two guys. It's still passable, it's still serviceable, it still deserves to be in the final. So Spain and Italy, the other big five countries, need to be taking a bit of their songbook. So let's talk about the final country that I have not mentioned, Ukraine. So I don't know if this is a bit of a hot take, but I'm not really feeling Heart of Steel by Torchy. Look, it's risen in my rankings from my initial listen. This was actually the first song we had announced for the 2023 season, all the way back in December of 2022. I don't know why Vidbeer was so early in the season. Usually it's not that early. I guess it had something to do with the war and the scheduling around things. And it did get revamped. So the initial version, I was definitely not feeling it. I was like, yeah, this is mid AF. I'm sorry, it's mid. It's also not something that feels Ukrainian. And I mean, that's a little unfair because I think the problem with Ukraine that I might be having now is we're coming off of Go A and Kalush Orchestra. And the second place that was possibly going to overtake Kalush Orchestra, which was another very ethnic, very regional, very folky performance. And now that Ukraine is wanting to send something a little bit more modern, adult, contemporary, a little bit more, you know, something Western sounding, a la like, you know, what they sent in 2018, for example, or in, you know, previous years, like with Be My Valentine and things like that. I'm just sort of like, I expect more from you. You've delivered really ethnic Slavic bops for a while now, and now you're giving us something kind of by the numbers, kind of mid electronic dance music, you know, dubsteppy. I was just disappointed for that reason, but I do think that's a little unfair because even though Ukraine, I would love to see it continue to give us Goes and Kalush orchestras and such. I also understand that countries do send different kinds of music each year. They don't always send the same thing. So, you know, maybe we get that kind of artist from another country this year, and Ukraine can send something a little more generic, you know? So I think that was the expectation, was just making Heart of Steel fall a little further for me. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's just not special to me. I do think that, you know, some people are saying they don't like it because it doesn't really reference the war. I'm like, I think it very much does. The Heart of Steel metaphor, first of all, it's about resilience, and they weren't going to explicitly talk about it, right? Because the contest can't be political, right? Is all about being resilient. It's all about, you know, under the forces of fire and brimstone, you know, just like standing your ground, becoming stronger like steel. Also, the steel analogy to the steelworks in last spring that was under siege in that city. Can't remember the name of it. This Avostal Steelworks, I believe it was called, in Mariupol. It's an homage to that and the fight that they had. I think using that as that clever little metaphor there is important and symbolic. So no, the song is 100% about the war. It's just very vague in general, so anyone can relate to it. But yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, the lead vocalist, he's competent, and I do think the song probably would deserve to qualify if it participated in a semi, but it would be one of my last minute qualifiers. It would be like my 10th or ninth space. And then in the grand final, I would give it spot maybe 20, maybe 15 at the most. I wouldn't put it anywhere near the top 10. And I'm worried that politically, it's probably going to do really well. So I want to say this. My dad, who is British, who somewhat introduced me to Eurovision at a young age, he doesn't follow the contest like I do, but he is aware of it, and he kind of treats it like a joke, as most British men of a certain age do. But he doesn't really follow the bookies. He doesn't really understand the nuance of the contest. He kind of looks at it as like a lot of British people do, as like a cynical kind of political contest. And he was just like, before he even heard Ukraine's entry, he was like, well, Ukraine's obviously winning again, right? Like there's no way Ukraine isn't winning again. And I was like, are you kidding me? No way. Have you heard what they're sending this year? No, 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 no. And that's what frustrates me. So I talked about this last year, but Stefania was my winning song. If you watched my ranking of the 2022 songs, I had Stefania at the top. And that had nothing to do with the war in Ukraine. That had nothing to do with the war in Ukraine. I genuinely love Stefania, okay? Because I like ethnic bops with flutes. I can't help it. I just can't help it. It had just such a hook and such a dance break. I was in love. It was experimental and it was risky. It was the most interesting. And I thought 2022, there weren't as many songs that were really jumping off the page for me. So this one really stuck out. But, I think unfortunately the discourse that I'm seeing is everyone believes that it only won because of the war. And I don't think that's really fair. I think that the war side, it definitely helped. Maybe it wouldn't have won. Maybe it would have only come top 5. But I would like to believe that, it would have still done really well with the public. The juries definitely weren't loving it, but the public was what sent it way over the edge. And people predict it's going to be a similar thing. Heck, the juries might even prefer Heart of Steel because it's kind of jury friendly in a way, a little bit of an R&B, like strong vocal, male vocal. They love that, but it's not for me. It's not for me. It's not a Cesar Sampson moment. Okay. I don't know. I'm not feeling it, and I don't want to see it in the top 5, but I am seeing it predicting to be at least in the top 10. I would be surprised if it wasn't. But if it is in the top 10, that is entirely politics. Prove me wrong, Torchy. When you're on stage, show me a show. I think that they could do something really interesting. Obviously, with the LEDs, the projections. I don't know. They're gonna serve something. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really hoping that it's not gonna win. It's not gonna win. Not when we have Sweden. Not when we have Finland, and not when we have Spain. I would argue, predicting, I'll end this video saying this, the 5 predictable winners, and 5 winners that I would be okay with winning. Sweden is predicted to win. And at this point, it sort of feels a little bit like Sasha Colby with season 15 of Drag Race. Let's just get it over with. Let's give her the crown. It's getting like no other results possible. No, Sweden deserves it, but I also would kind of love an upset. Finland is the next most likely. Norway is also dark horse. Okay, don't underestimate Norway, and I wouldn't mind seeing Norway win. And then we got Spain, okay, and then we got France. These are the 5 that really have a shot. France probably even more so than Spain. But all 5 of these, and then Ukraine would be like this. But I'm seeing Ukraine take out Spain and maybe even Norway. I'm just like, no, y'all, we are getting delusional. But like I said, you can't control the public, and the public may be just got to give Ukraine love. We can't have Ukraine coming in 0. And I do see that being an issue because I think people are going to be like, well, if Ukraine scores really low, people are going to view that as too harsh on them. But I'm worried that they're going to overvote for them because everyone's afraid that Ukraine's not going to get enough love. But we don't necessarily think they need to win. I mean, they did just win last year. Like, hello. I know countries have won back-to-back, but that has not happened since the 90s, and I'd rather not see that happen. But, I mean, if it's deserved, it's deserved. But it's not deserved in this case. Anyway, so I'm going to wrap up my thoughts by just saying that, would I rank Ukraine? Where would I rank it? I would rank it above Germany, because I still prefer it over Blood and Glitter. And maybe above Du Vite. But I would rank it under the UK. and I would rank it under, obviously, France and Spain. Way, way under them. So yeah, I would put it above Italy, though. I would put it above Italy, just because Italy's really not really that exciting to me. It's just very predictable, very bland. Melody, it's not really jumping off the page. And you know how I feel about Germany. So anyway, those are my thoughts. What are yours? I am so excited to watch Eurovision. I will be making a video after the contest is over, talking about semifinal 1, semifinal 2, and the grand final, and everything in between. There's always some controversy. There's always something to talk about with Eurovision. I'm really excited. So stay tuned for that the week after Eurovision. And I am rooting for Finland, and I'm rooting for Finland and Spain. Like, let's be honest. I know Sweden's probably, I wouldn't mind Sweden winning. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't be upset, but I'm rooting for Finland and Spain. I'm rooting for Finland and Spain. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Let me know, what are your favorites of the Big Five plus Ukraine? And do you agree, disagree? Share your thoughts. I will see you all on my next one. I hope you all have a wonderful, blessed day. Peace, love, and light. Bye.